Welcome back to the Party of Two podcast, which, as of right now, is exclusively for gold level D23 members only. I'm one of your hosts, the Internet's Mark B. Donica.
And I am one of your other hosts, the Internet's Andrea Donica.
We just got back from the D23 Expo, our 5th consecutive Expo. We have been there since the very beginning.
OG visitors.
So who's better to talk to you about this? I'd say nobody else. So if you're listening to this, you're really getting the legit business when it comes to the D23 Expo. We're going to be talking primarily about the Parks and Resorts panel and parks, entertainment, and merchandise. That's whatever the
parks, products, and experiences.
That's what it was. But we're going to talk to you a little bit about the Expo in general. We got in Thursday, got to spend some time with our friends and family, but Friday, ooh boy, did it start. It started off early because we went and finally experienced Galaxy's Edge, which we're going to talk about in a later episode, especially since Galaxy's Edge Florida is about to open up.
You'll probably hear us talk about Galaxy's Edge for the next episode, so just keep your ears peeled.
Make sure you're subscribed.
Yeah.
But but we did that on Thursday because we knew from all of our past experience that the first day is a nightmare when it comes to getting into the Expo. The Disney Plus panel we weren't necessarily as interested in. It's coming out in November, so any of the stuff that they're going to talk about we're going to see in a couple months. What's the gift going to be? And we found out it's a dad hat. It's a logoed Disney Plus dad hat, so not as necessarily mad about missing that. However, we did spend most of the day, or as a result, I should say, we did spend most of the first day exploring the space, checking out all of the booths, and spending 3 hours of that day in lines for Mickey's of Glendale, the Imagineer store.
Woohoo!
So with that, Andrea, I wanted to ask you, and it doesn't have to be from Mickey's of Glendale, because we made a few mostly tasteful purchases at the Expo. And so to talk about the shopping experience and what your favorite thing that you got was.
Well, when you wait in line for 3 hours for merchandise, it is a little soul-crushing, not gonna lie. But I was determined because last time we were at the Expo, we did not make it into Mickey's of Glendale, which was the only year that we hadn't, and I was very disappointed. So I was determined. And you know what? We had plenty of entertainment while we were waiting. Jeff Goldblum passed by us.
Yeah. So when I left the Expo and call it a little crazy, but I ended up here in Florida. So thank you very much for housing me here on the Party of Two podcast.
You're welcome, Jeff. We love you.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna keep walking.
Okay. We had plenty of social interactions by people next to us. There was a lady that was initially in front of us that was turning around, and she was being kind of sarcastic. She was a little bit older. She was like, "So what's the big deal about this line?" Which, first and foremost, if you're going to get in a line that has been projected for several hours and you just stand there and get into it, I don't know why you would do that without understanding why it's worth it.
That's mostly conventions, though. There some friends of ours, Milo being one of them, once went in the middle of a walkway of Comic-Con, he and a couple of friends of his, and started a line. And then people got behind them.
Oh my God.
And then about 5 minutes in, they all walked in different directions away, and then proceeded to watch the people behind them confusedly look around and disperse.
That's amazing.
With conventions in general, you never know what kind of a line you're in.
Well, sure, but I mean, you can kind of look ahead. And I mean, for this, she could have asked somebody. Not me. But of course she had to ask me, because everybody asks me questions like that.
You're very dependable.
Well, I feel like I seem to have an approachable face, so strangers are always coming up to me like, "Hey, can you tell me this or that?" And I'm not necessarily an employee at wherever it is it happens, but it happens rather often. Anyhow, it turned out that she was a cast member, and she could go to the actual Mickey's of Glendale store in Glendale, and she didn't need to wait into it. So after talking to her about it, she eventually left the line.
Thinning out the numbers. Smart strategy.
I was just like, what hell just happened? That was weird. But it was good. We finally got in. I was hoping for more. I feel like I'm used to that booth having more merchandise.
Well, I think more recently they finally split up the standard merchandise and the pins. And the pins was a completely different can of beans. That was at least a 5-hour line.
Usually 8 hours.
And thankfully, like, we're casual pin people. We usually tend to stick to a couple of characters or franchises or just stuff that plain looks cool. So we weren't, I was a little sad because I did like some of my favorite pins are from Mickey's of Glendale, but I wasn't going to wait in that line. I don't even know what they were offering there, but they did have a lot of EPCOT merchandise, including a EPCOT pin set that featured all of the new and classic logos. And that was $200 and a limited edition of 200 pieces. But you could get the pins individually. So we picked and chose and got the Imagination Pavilion as well as the Land Pavilion, which are two of our favorites.
Yeah, and they are with the new colors that have been announced and released for all of the different pavilions. And these pins themselves were showing the updated logos for everything.
Were those your favorite things that you got?
No. Honestly, my favorite thing that I got, I am actually wearing right now. It is a tribute to the submarine voyage. It has the sub. It's yellow, and the background is a cool oceany blue, and it's filled in and shaped by dialogue from the attraction itself.
Yeah, I forgot what the term for that is, but it's a more common style these days, where it's a character or something filled in with text related to that image, and it is very cool. It's a very cool get. It's really hard. If I had to pick, it's really hard to not pick the Land Pavilion pin because that thing rules.
Oh yeah.
But I did really like the I did really like the EPCOT shirt that I got, which is sort of the new design of Spaceship Earth, but it's also kind of based on an old poster.
Yeah, the original EPCOT center poster.
And it's not necessarily in a navy blue, but it's in a darker blue. I like it. It's comfy. It's cool. But moving on from there, because we want to get to this panel, did you have a favorite cosplayer? Like we dressed up as Dreamfinder and Figment. We kind of bounded as Dreamfinder and Figment, and at least for me, that costume is going to continue to evolve.
Yes.
But you were pretty set. Aside from us, I'll say, what was your favorite costume?
It's really hard because I feel like every D23 people continue to step it up. Something that, and these costumes actually won the what's the name of that?
Masquerade?
The Masquerade, that's right. A group of princesses that once they lifted up their skirts turned into teacups from Mad Tea Party. That was crazy amazing.
That's pretty cute.
But runner-up, I would say, and it wasn't one particular person, but I saw quite a few gadgets from Rescue Rangers walking around.
Well, there was that family that was Gadget, Dale, or Gadget and Chip, and their child, their son, presumably was Dale.
Yeah,
that was pretty adorable.
So cute.
For me, it had to be yes. I saw there was a perfectly hued yes in her silver sparkly like Generalissimo outfit as she was sending all of the pop-up ads out to the internet. That was remarkable because you see some kind of put together Ralphs, you see some Vanellope's, rarely do you see some of the other racers from Sugar Rush, and we saw a couple of Fix-It Felixes, I guess is what you would say. But not only was it yes, but it was a bright and shiny yes. Next step would be to get like the fiber optic fur coat, the Ferber optic yes coat. That's sort of the next step, and I hope to see that in the future challenge laid out there. Thank you to everybody who sent us that cool Haunted Mansion movable ride dress that sort of took over social media as the coolest thing, and it was cool. It was
Very
cool. But, we all have our personal biases.
Hmm.
Now, moving on, it's time to talk business. To talk about the Parks Etc. panel, because I don't want to say the whole dang thing. And our host for the day was Bob Chapek. Oh, boy. Does he know how to talk about business? Now,
he is so corporate.
Interestingly enough, and it's something that most keynote speeches usually do. This felt like a keynote. Most of the other speeches from the weekend, or the presentations over the weekend, felt like keynotes. Here's how we've been doing in the past, and here's a preview of what we're going to be doing in the future. And it was like turbo. It was remarkably
just
fast
flying
paced
through it.
And yet the only part of the speech that I felt had any sort of like rhythm and let's take time to let stuff hit was the intro, where they were talking about the Galaxy's Edge and all of the numbers and the this and that of the experiences that we have just put out and how proud we are of everybody and everything involved in that. And that's great. But at the same time, that takes the time from all of the announcements, though I suppose that's part of the
that
strategy.
Was the plan, definitely. The only time that I really felt that I saw like person Bob versus corporate Bob was when he dropped the joke about listening to guest requests for more shade in EPCOT, which literally got laughs through the entire audience.
And yet, here we are, and I say we as a Diz Twitter product, giving him the shade right back, because the way that he ran this was very expected. And I think that was part of the problem. I think everybody was waiting for the unexpected, and the things that were expected didn't happen. And I will say that is there. Some of Disney is to blame, and some of the community is to blame.
Oh, sure.
But we'll talk about that, and setting certain expectations and people's reports being sure things, etc., etc. But starting over at Disneyland, they announced a new parade. Magic Happens. Yeah, the name is fine.
Well, and I heard the title released through a rumor mill source before the panel or the presentation, and at first I was like, well, that sounds okay. And then the artist that actually made the music came out, and we got a full-on performance of the song, and I am for it 100%.
I not to be a corrective Nancy here.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the person who wrote it.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So it was helped produced by Todrick Hall, and they brought out a different performer to perform it. But regardless, totally agree. One of the things that we've always had an issue with is in producing their original songs, if it's not entirely based on if it's an original song, the style is usually tends to be pretty dated, like 80s, 90s, and it works in some cases, not all cases.
But it's gotten so cheesy, and so this new song feels fresh and contemporary and actually makes you want to get up and dance and move, and I'm actually really excited for this now.
The art style is really cool. A lot of the floats, at least in the renderings, look like brush strokes. There's going to be stuff from Moana, Coco. It said Sleeping Beauty, so that may just be the featured castle, but it looks like that's going to be the princess float. The song sounds like 24 Karat Magic.
Yes.
Which is great.
And in terms of Sleeping Beauty, she's up on the highest point on that float with the castle, and you can see that her dress changes colors from pink to blue.
And I think she was dancing with
Philip.
Yeah. So that's going to be rad. Mickey and Minnie are going to be leading the way. It looks like a pretty cool parade.
Yeah.
Now the people we were sitting with were a little upset because it was a Disneyland parade announcement, not a Walt Disney World parade announcement, and that's totally legit.
Yeah,
totally
absolutely.
Understand that, and especially since they seem to be getting Disneyland's leftovers. Very much miss Paint the Night. Paint the Night
Yeah.
is sorely missed, and its music, I think, was the first step into going in the modern style, but can't give it credit for being an original song because it's a takeoff of the Wreck-It Ralph theme, When Will I See You Again?
But
And that's
that's
fine.
also helpful too, because that's still a fairly contemporary song. I mean, it's not from the 90s, so there's that.
No, but it's got that Bowling for Soup, like it's got that pop rock early 2000s feel, and that's closer. That's a little bit closer, but now we're finally in the 2010s with the Magic Happens song. We got a high energy performance, very cool, very nice. We moved on to what Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is going to look like in California. We got a piece of concept art of the El Capitan Theater. Which
Love the puns.
People are groaning over it, but if you didn't grow up in Los Angeles with the El Capitan, it's just kind of this thing that you hear about as a Disney fan. But what was the last thing we saw? We saw Little Mermaid there for your birthday. That was the last thing we went to.
Yeah.
But we saw Frozen there. I was lucky enough to go to a couple of press screenings, and I saw The Incredibles 2 there. I saw Wreck-It Ralph 2 there. We saw WALL-E there, which is one of our favorite in-theater stories about kids.
We saw Enchanted there back in the day.
Enchanted?
Oh, yeah. I
Okay.
remember like all the flowers that were decorated on the sides. It's really, it is an event to go to the El Capitan if you're a Disney fan.
And so the having it be the El Capitan Theater, you sort of get a tour and of the history of Mickey Mouse cartoons, and then that leads into the ride coming in 2022. It looks pretty phenomenal. We also got a little bit of a look at the Walt Disney World facade. That's the new version of the Chinese theater, which doesn't look that different. The marquee looks reminiscent of the Great Movie Ride marquee, and it's not the Great Movie Ride, and we're not necessarily over it, but it looks nice.
It looks really nice, and the version in Florida is going to be opening in 2020, but we still don't have a season or a date or anything like that. It still feels very much up in the air. It was expressed that because this is really, really brand new technology, they're working very hard to still kind of figure things out. So I feel that that's probably why we just still don't have a full direction with that. But it looks like from the few stills that they did give us, they are fairly well along in the process.
And it may just be getting certain perspectives, especially with if they're doing any sort of projection mapping, you got to get that stuff 100% correct. Yeah. So that's going to take some time. Hopefully it's January 2020, just after the Christmas season. Oh, you know what? I mean, they like sort of coupling on their debuts. We're getting Rise of the Resistance December 5th. Let that take care of Christmas, and then just after Christmas is when we may get Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. And
there are quite a few other things that are opening January 2020 for Walt Disney World Resort as a whole, like the new Circle Visions, the new Beauty and the Beast sing-along is going to be opening.
So the new China Pavilion, where is it? Boo. There was a lot of EPCOT stuff, so going through Play Pavilion, Moana, blah, blah, blah. So it's Wondrous China is going to be the new seamless 360 degrees, so there's not going to be the little projectors. And then Canada Far and Wide is going to be debuting in January 2020 as well. So that along in one park, while those may not be people eaters necessarily, having another attraction open in another park helps sort of split that popularity and split that sort of a crowd.
Yeah.
But then we got a little bit more information about the Zootopia themed land coming to Shanghai. We just got some more concept art and a little bit of information that the attraction is going to blend storytelling and state-of-the-art technology.
Which could really mean anything, but hey, it sounds really exciting. I know a lot of people are big Zootopia fans, and it really has the makings for a really fun themed environment. So I'm all about it.
And a lot of furries. So the only bit of news from the Asian parks was from Hong Kong Disneyland, where we knew that their castle was going to be transformed. It was going to become an amalgam of 13 different castles, essentially. And it looks really pretty.
Beautiful.
We got the official name, the Castle of Magical Dreams. And some people are like, that's, isn't that a little bit too heavy-handed?
They have to kind of make it generic because you have that many different stories. You have 13 different princess stories, essentially. It has to be kind of all-encompassing.
I also wonder how it translates. If the Chinese title has to be so I can imagine that the title for the Chinese audience is something a little bit more straightforward, and then translated it comes out to Castle of Magical Dreams.
That's
Either
very
way,
possible.
all of this stuff, especially for Hong Kong, they're trying to make stuff to get the locals there, because it's a destination park for sure for us and for other Disney fans around the world. But hasn't Hong Kong been having an issue with attendance?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they did from the beginning. It was the smallest park that they had ever built. They built the smallest castle, which is why, for the first time, the castle is getting redone. It's kind of a huge undertaking that has a lot of California Adventure vibes to me. So I'm glad that they are taking the time to try and fix things. A lot of this was initially rushed, and now they need to make up for it, essentially.
Yeah, and one of those ways they're making up for it is they're adding that Frozen area. So we're getting this castle that's an amalgam of 13 castles, and yet Arendelle is becoming its own land because
Which
Frozen
is so cool.
is just that big. And again, for the majority of this, I'm going to be prefacing these announcements with, and the community seems to be put off with the announcement of, and who seem to never have been in the roller coaster and never been fans of roller coasters, because for this Arendelle land coming to Hong Kong Disneyland, we're going to be getting Wandering Oaken's Sliding Sleighs, which just from you don't have to say it, you can just look at the art. This is Mine Train. This is this is the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and the reason I bring up roller coasters is usually anytime you design and build a roller coaster, I said generally anytime a company designs and builds a roller coaster, and it's evident from the Expedition series, and he does a lot of roller coasters. Once you have that done, you have the manufacturing planned and done, you know how much everything costs, you then sell that design around.
Yeah.
And so that it pops up in multiple places around the country, around the world. And the one that I can think of is Six Flags Magic Mountain had a huge landmark ride, Goliath. It was the biggest vertical drop, or not I say vertical drop, but it was the biggest roller coaster drop in the country. But it was also Titan in another state. It was the exact same ride, exact same color scheme, exact same rock displays, but it was called Titan instead of Goliath. And that happens all around the country, depending on what sort of a manufacturer you go to. Yeah. So seeing that they're utilizing this ride system for Frozen, I think they didn't just give Snow White or the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train ride. They figured out a way to make it work for Frozen. And I think if you can figure out a way to utilize this in new ways, I consider this an entirely new ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not an unusual thing, as you said. And it's not even just roller coasters per se, but is definitely more so the case with roller coasters. Once you have the design, things get a little more affordable to build and figure out, which means that when you do an expansion, you can have more stuff. You can have more interactive elements. You can have more audio animatronics, things to really customize and get these new offerings for people to be excited about.
I'm interested in seeing how they utilize, if they utilize the audio animatronic scenes from Seven Dwarfs Mine Train in this, especially because Frozen Ever After from EPCOT is also going into this area of the park, and that's a very story heavy thing, and that could possibly change. They may add some things that the original ride wasn't able to do just due to time constraints. I think they're open to customize this ride at least just a little bit, even though I'm sure the majority of it will stay the same.
Well, and the other thing too, what I love the idea for this coaster is that Olaf and Sven are pulling you up to the top of the mountain and then release you.
Okay.
That's really cute.
So you're going to be able to see some of your favorite Frozen characters in both rides.
Yeah.
And I assume there's going to be a meet and greet in that castle.
Oh, there's gotta be.
So excited about that. And then one of the things that I thought was the coolest announcement, and I'm sure you agree too, us being theater people. So there is in Disney Springs, there is a Cirque du Soleil theater, and it's been a Cirque du Soleil theater for quite some time. It's been under repair ever since we've been here.
Yeah.
Some sort of whatever, who knows what was going on until now. We know that Disney is working with Cirque du Soleil to create an original animation and animator based Cirque product, and it looks and sounds phenomenal. We didn't hear any music. We saw some concept art, but knowing what Cirque can do and hearing the idea that the performers are going to be interacting with animation directly, and Disney is animating new stuff with their characters, sounds like magic.
It sounds wonderful, and the fact that you have Cirque du Soleil, you have Walt Disney Imagineering, and you have Walt Disney Animation, all of these different groups coming together to create a brand new, unique experience. Sounds absolutely phenomenal. We don't have a name for it yet, but it's going to be opening relatively soon. It's going to start soft opening in previews in March 2020. So that's really not that far away.
March 20th, 2020.
Oh.
So now you're like, did I say too many 20s?
And
Nope.
you can already purchase tickets. There is a link on the Disney Parks blog. You will be redirected to Cirque du Soleil. For the cheapest level tickets, you're looking at it to start around $89 per person for the previews. Of course, it's going to go up a little bit once the entire show is fully launched in April. So keep that in mind when you're shopping around.
April 17th.
Thank you.
We would recommend as theater people to get tickets as close to opening day as possible, because that's the sooner that they'll have all of the issues worked out, if there are any. So not to say that they won't be show ready by the 20th, but just in case, if you want to have a sure thing, get as close to opening day as possible.
Because it's still a slight workshopping time for them. So just keep that in mind. I know a lot of times fans, when they come to see something that's still testing or in previews, and they get to go see it early, they expect everything to be ready. But there's a reason why they say, this is in previews, this is soft opening, we're still getting all of the kinks worked out, we're still hammering this home to be completely story ready. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, but it looks remarkable. It's the story of a daughter of an animator that goes on a life-changing, coming-of-age tale through the world of animation.
I'm so excited for it.
It's gonna be rad. It's gonna be rad regardless. If you haven't seen a Cirque show, you're in for a treat, because they perform like no other theater company.
They're phenomenal.
No other dance troupe. They're remarkable. There's a reason why they're a global leader in entertainment.
Yeah.
So the next big section was talking about Target. We're not going to go that far into it, but there's going to be a Target location opening up in Walt Disney World, and there, which might be
near Walt Disney World. Like, think about the McDonald's that is pretty close to Animal Kingdom. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting from this.
Well, and think about that. People are like, oh, a Target, but Targets have everything. They have groceries. They have basic supplies. So whether it's a Target Express or whatever, I can't imagine that being like a big local spot. But with so many hotels on the property that
I
have,
think it's going to be helpful for the hotel guests for sure.
if they have full amenities, if they have full kitchen, full this, full that, you can, and you're staying for an extended period of time, then you can take a minivan, or maybe there's a bus stop or whatever. It's I don't expect it to become a part of Disney Springs, but it's going to be fine. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, and the other reason why they talked about Target as well is all of these Targets across the country are going to be getting specifically designed Disney areas that basically bring the Disney store to you. I will say there are Targets already having implemented this. So if you happen to be in the right area, then hey, good for you. It's not going to be at every single Target. The most exciting thing about this portion of the presentation was the fact that Bullseye came on stage, and everyone loves dogs, and everyone freaked out.
But that's part of the corporateness of this announcement. Hey, so at bare bones, it's hey, stores. We're going to have a store opening up at Walt Disney World and around the country with the hope of 65 of these shop-in-shop ideas, concepts, opening up by October 2020. So we know this is boring, and we may or may not continue to upset you. So here's a dog. Also, everybody is getting $10.
And one person gets $2,300 for a D23.
Hashtag cute. So that it was weird. It was kind of manipulative. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, no, but I mean, got to see the dog.
that's exactly what I'm saying.
This is what they wanted, and I will say I bought into the gimmick. I know it's a gimmick, and I fully accept that. I got to see the Target dog.
Him cute. So after this, we went to the Avengers campus, which was recently named at the Expo. We finally got a name for what these lands are going to be called. The Avengers campus. Essentially, it's like after all of the bad stuff happens on Earth, they start trying to recruit the next generation of heroes. So they open up these campuses around the world.
It's too much work to do for a couple of superheroes. They need more people. Yeah. So we're going to help them as best we can.
There are a couple of things announced. The Spider-Man ride, which doesn't necessarily have a name yet, but it looks like it's a shooter ride where you thwip rogue spider bots, essentially. And from the concept art that they released, it doesn't look like you have any sort of an apparatus, a gun, a shooter, a blaster, anything. It's just people extending their arm in the rock, I love you, whatever you want to refer to it as, position, and web shooting out. Now, I can imagine similarly, and so that makes me think that there's some sort of sensor on the edge of the viewing window of the ride vehicle. But I can also imagine there being provided wrist straps, similarly to how you get a pair of 3D glasses. It's just a little thing that goes around that has a web shooter on it, so that it has a sensor in the thing, so that when it crosses the beam, then it shoots the web. I just got really technical there for a second, but I found it very strange that there's no... I mean, if they can pull it off without having any sort of a gizmo or goober or whatever you want to refer to it as, that'd be cool. But it looks like a Spider-Man shooter ride.
Basically. And I mean, it's cool. I think the concept, at least story-wise, for the attraction is cute. You know, Peter Parker / Spider-Man has been developing these little spider bots. And, of course, something goes wrong and they leave the warehouse, and you have to go chasing after them before they cause complete havoc over the locals and the Avengers campus.
Across the campus. Oh man, my teacher's gonna kill me.
Tony's gonna be so mad. You know what? In terms of this campus, all of the original Avengers are going to be walking around. So in this universe, Tony Stark is still alive. Captain America is still young and beautiful.
Or Endgame hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So it could be something where this is before Infinity War.
Yeah.
Or this is the time between Black Panther and Infinity War where Thanos hasn't showed up yet. Maybe. Depending on how they get Thor to look. But so aside from this, there was a lot of talk about a microbrewery where it was going to be like a giant beer can and blah, 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 blah. And that was a little bit too theme parky for the designers, because instead we are going to be getting the PIM test kitchen, where PIM Technologies is using the latest inventions to grow and shrink food. So I think this is going to be a fun, kitschy place where you'll be able to get food, dinner-sized snacks.
This is all for Instagram people.
And
100%.
Oh, well, I mean, Instagrammable came up in the Target talk, which was a weird place for that. Aside from that,
was it Target? I thought it was for looking ahead for Disney World.
It was for the Disney store pop-ups in the Target stores. It's for this, that, and Instagrammable. Like, what? You're going to put a photo wall in the middle of a Target?
I mean, they might.
In the middle of 65 Targets? We found out that this is going to be the first phase of the Avengers Campus release, and that it was going to be starting next year. But a little bit further on, we don't know when, but there's going to be what they refer to as an e-ticket attraction, where you go on a mission with the Avengers to Wakanda.
Amongst other places. Everyone keeps saying Wakanda. It's not just Wakanda.
To Wakanda and beyond.
Yes.
So it starts as a mission to Wakanda that goes further. It starts there. So he didn't mention who the villain of the ride was going to be. No. The concept art looked like insectoid type of bad guys. It also looked like the seats of the Quinjet come out, and you have sort of Avengers-esque powers built into your seat to help fight alongside the Avengers. This is all in concept. This is all early Blue Sky stuff, it seems.
It looks like, format-wise, similar to Avatar Flight of Passage.
I wonder...
Because it was 4 seats facing a screen.
It was 8 seats. It was 8? two rows of 4 seats. Oh. And I don't know. I mean, this is, it's sort of high concept at this point.
Yeah.
But if they can make you feel like a superhero, that's rad. That's cool.
Sure.
I'm about it.
So the idea is you're going to be entering and flying on the Quinjet. So that should be interesting. This is all coming to Disney California Adventure.
We don't know about Paris. We don't know about Paris yet. They talked very little about the Doctor Strange experience, but you'll be able to learn the mystic arts from Doctor Strange.
And it looks really cool.
The area, if it stays how it was in the concept, looks pretty cool. But I hope that we get a little bit more information. I hope you go into an inner sanctum, and like the idea is that it's going to be like a cool experience where everybody gets to do magic, blah blah blah. Maybe we all use a sling ring to open up a portal to somewhere else, and we go on a magical adventure. But we don't know, because they're very light with their information.
Yeah.
All right.
Is it time?
Yeah, let's talk about EPCOT, I guess.
I guess.
So, okay. The first thing that we got was that Future World is going away.
Bye-bye, Future World. You are no more.
It's getting split into... So the whole area is getting split into neighborhoods, as they're being called.
The whole park, technically.
Okay, I guess I misspoke.
So World Showcase is still going to be World Showcase. But basically, the entire park is situated into 4 different neighborhoods. So World Showcase is one. That's not getting changed at all. Then you have World Discovery, which is based on science and exploration, space, etc.
That's where Test Track, Mission Space, and Guardians are right now. And Play.
And we finally got a name for the Guardians attraction, which is Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Yeah. Which sounds cool. And Chapek just kind of dropped down at us. Oh, we didn't tell you last time at D23, but by the way, you're going to get launched backwards. And your ride vehicle is going to spin 360 degrees left and right, wherever we want you to focus on where the action is.
So I'm wondering if this is an updated version of of the Crush Coaster.
That's kind of what it sounds like to me, but
'Cause
more
it's-
extreme by
it's
like leaps and bounds.
four person cars, and in some of the art it varies from how big the cars are, like how many, the ride vehicles have individual cars, and there was a poster in the pavilion that had a certain amount of cars, and then in the concept art that they showed during the panel, it had a different number. So it's probably still in flux. Maybe the vehicle splits in half and you're on two different tracks. Who knows?
That's possible.
I'm just putting ideas in people's heads.
Uh.
But then World Nature, is where land, sea, water, and was Imagination in there? Or was that in Celebration?
So people seem to be confused about this. And if you find an image of this on the Disney Parks blog, they have everything illuminated. Imagination is in World Celebration, which is more in the center, but because of how Imagination is positioned just physically in EPCOT, the bathrooms kind of end up more in World Nature. But for all intents and purposes, it is World Celebration that it's a part of. And World Celebration is Spaceship Earth, the new pavilion that is getting built. That's 3 different stories.
Oh, it has a name. It doesn't have a name. A new pavilion at World Celebration will be the home base for Epcot's signature festivals, providing a stunning view of World Showcase, an ideal spot to witness the park's nighttime spectaculars. This 3-level structure will have one of the most remarkable designs at any Disney park and will fast become a new icon for Epcot. That is the entire bit of this live blog post.
Dreamer's Point?
Dreamer's Point?
Or is that
no,
just
that's Dreamer's
the
Point.
spot?
That's Dreamer's Point.
And there's going to be a brand new... we're jumping around a little bit here, which is just kind of the nature of it. But there's going to be a brand new Walt Disney statue where he is kind of sitting on a set of stairs. I'm sure that that's going to be a place where a lot of people take photos, but he's kind of just looking out at Epcot. It looks very charming. Of course, people are saying Walt would hate this. Anyone that actually knew Walt Disney personally back in the day insists that Walt would have hated having a statue of himself at all. But the reality is, pretty much almost every single big Disney park has a Walt Disney statue somewhere. Epcot, even though the original Epcot Center that got built, not even thinking about what we have today or what we'll have in the future, is nowhere close to what he originally envisioned for Epcot as an actual community for people to live in. I think it's still a nice homage to him in some way. I don't think it's something to get all that upset over.
And ultimately, it's nice. He's sitting on some steps, looking out. It's just nice.
It's kind of casual. It's inviting. I kind of like how he's kind of just positioned to be open as an accessible figure, as opposed to these statues that are kind of blocked off by planters and whatnot.
So it's interesting. It's something that I pointed out to Andrea personally, and I think I tweeted about it from the show. Looking back, I'm on the Disney Parks recap of the whole shenanigans, and they used, I don't know what came first, Bob Chapek's speech or this post, but it is exactly the same.
Yeah.
The wording here is exactly the same wording that we got from Bob, and he could have just been reading it off of this post.
I mean, everything had to be pre-formulated. For all of these presentations and panels, there were teleprompters, and you need the teleprompters to keep everybody on track. And I mean, Bob had to host, like, the presentation started at 10:30. We got out between 1 and 1:30, And he was hosting the whole thing.
Well, there were some times when
he had small
there were
breaks.
other people come in and do performances and this and that, but it was a little interesting that they didn't change like a couple of things to make it more personable. And anybody who was there, anybody who was watching live, who looks at this post and doesn't hear Bob saying it is interesting. That makes him seem less personable. You know, like you said, there are a couple of times where he appeared human, and those were the couple of improv lines that he threw in there. There needed to be more of that. You know, it's one thing to get through the script and get through the rest of the show, but one of my things that I was expecting him to be in this was personable, and it was only those couple of moments where he was. And when it comes to EPCOT, and there's so much in it that people hold dear. Something that I'm super excited about is that my brother is equally as jazzed about living with the land as we are.
Yeah.
And that was a fun discovery. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. But talking about the rest of EPCOT, because there's a lot to talk about and we've been running pretty long so far, is the new version of Spaceship Earth, which
is in World Celebration.
Yes, it's right in the middle of the show, but they're going to be changing it. Instead of being about, well, I mean, I guess it's still kind of about communication.
Yeah, so now the concept is focusing on storytelling, and truthfully, throughout humanity's history, really the way that humans relate to each other is through storytelling. That is how we base communication in many ways.
Yeah, I want to write these stories down.
I think that's I see the connection there, and I think that's going to be really lovely. Bob Chapek did insist on stage that they were going to be keeping with the history, that Spaceship Earth is still supposed to be the centerpiece attraction of EPCOT, but in the little bit of concept rendering that we saw, there is a boat scene, and it kind of looks like Moana is sitting on the back of a boat, and her grandmother's manta ray spirit is kind of floating through the air. There's going to be this glowy thing that kind of like takes you through the attraction now, which looks really pretty and cool. But I am concerned just seeing that little bit related to Moana, like, oh no, are they going to be shoving IP into every single scene and ignoring factual history? That's something that I'm really concerned about. Even with Bob insisting that history is still going to be respected in there, I'm concerned about it. Now, the first reaction is, well, shoot, are the Phoenicians even going to be in there now?
So thinking about Spaceship Earth piece by piece, there are a lot of the scenes that are already in there that can be repurposed for storytelling.
Yeah.
Like they showed the cave scene telling a story of a hunt. Thinking about the Phoenicians, they create the language for us to document stories. The Egyptians, before, like, don't necessarily have the Phoenician language, but they told stories through drawings on the walls.
Yeah.
The Renaissance, stories through painting, stories through writing, stories through music. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's already in there that can be purposed for stories. Now, one of the things that comes into question for me is getting to the computer room, because that is 100% communication. Or
fanfiction.net will be featured in Spaceship Earth.
Or space. or whatever. So it's one of those things where there are ways where they can make the stuff that's already in their work, and the stuff that doesn't will probably get repurposed. Now, I will say that one of the things that I wanted to try to look up, and I'm kind of spacing out to read through this thing, manta rays
mm-hmm.
are an important part of the I say an important part, but there are a cultural representative of certain higher thoughts and higher beings in Pacific Island culture, and it was something that Moana used as a way to help communicate that and connect that story of that culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not so while we as outsiders to that culture recognize it as, oh, it's that thing from Moana, it could be something that isn't necessarily attached, is something that
has more depth than it seems to be playing on the surface.
Yes, exactly. So,
I hope that that's the case.
Because also looking back at that rendering, I was like, that like it doesn't necessarily look like Moana. It doesn't necessarily look like,
it could just be a woman with long hair.
Yeah.
And that's fully possible, and I recognize that. I don't want it to be like how It's a Small World is in Disneyland, where you turn the corner to another country and there's Cinderella, there's this character, there's that character, because those are, yes, those are stories. Then this becomes another thing, but it becomes a question of, okay, but historically, was that story created? I mean, are we going to suddenly... We can't suddenly say, okay, we're in France in the 1600s and you see Walt Disney's version of this character, because that's centuries ahead of its time. That's not going to per se be an accurate representation.
No, I agree. I don't think it's going to be like It's a Small World. I have more hope. And another thing that I think kind of debunks the Moana argument is that we are getting this journey into water attraction, water garden, that's sort of going to be a place, not a placeholder, but it's going to be going in between the seas and the main fountain spaceship Earth area.
Yeah, and during the presentation, Bob did say that it was technically going to be a part of the land, but it's not going to be inside of the pavilion. It is an outdoor experience. This is not a ride. This is a walk-through sort of attraction. And it has been actually kind of shocking to me how negative the reaction to this has been, because from everything that I've seen, this is not just like Moana's face plastered everywhere. This is 100% an interactive water feature. And I think that that's really cool. And it's going to be cooling. There's going to be some shade there, which, again, we all want. It's going to be really beautiful,
and
actually.
It looks, and they talked about how it's going to be interactive and how it's going to interact with you like the ocean character did in Moana. Now, that does sort of set the expectations pretty high, but from the extended look at the art that they had, the like moving art, concept art that they had, it's gonna be fine.
And shout out to Walt Disney Imagineering too for making the moving concept art. I thought that was really cool to see at the presentation.
Yeah, I mean it's hopefully a lot easier than like a concept video. But going back to the thing, it's sort of like what we said when we were hypothesizing about the Seas Pavilion and how that could be improved, is that when it comes to conservationism of any kind, giving children an icon to look to relate to them, makes them take it a little bit more seriously sooner, because then it's less of it's childish to be like, no, I want to help where Moana lives, but that puts that idea in their head and in their heart a lot sooner. So by making this about the journey of water in the earth, it has an opportunity to be very educational by using a popular IP.
And they did actually say that this is going to promote water conservation and talk about how it actually does work inside of the earth. And I think that that's really great and actually does connect to one of EPCOT's original missions. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
I think that that's actually one of the best things to come out of all of these new things that are coming.
Totally
so
agreed.
I'm really excited for this.
Same here, and it makes me want to watch Moana again.
Yeah.
Especially, there's a lot of stuff that made me want to watch Moana again this weekend. The Disney Emoji Blitz had a Moana event where you tried to unlock Tamatoa, so that got a bunch of stuff stuck in my head. There was also a lot of Moana Maui, and we saw like a Descendants-esque Tamatoa that was kind of interesting. Either way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that was
a Thursday.
interesting.
So other than that, they talked a little bit about the Play Pavilion, and we only learned a couple new things that there's going to be a water balloon fight type of thing with the boys McDuck and Webby. Cool. And then some sort of an experience where you get to help Edna Mode out with her fashion.
Well, no, to rid the world of
devastation,
bad fashion, and I am all about that. That sounds like a lot of fun. It's probably going to be really ridiculous, but they also showed in the concept art Edna Mode actually standing up on a stage and addressing you.
It doesn't necessarily mean that is the case. I can imagine it realistically being like a Turtle Talk with Crush situation.
It could be.
At the very least. But at
I'm
most,
crossing my fingers. Oh my gosh, if we get an Edna Mode audio animatronic, I would be enthralled. And this is all going to be part of World Discovery.
Yeah, the Play Pavilion is going to be in World Discovery, and it's going to be opening in time for the 50th, which means 2021 sometime. And that's also, I don't know if this was where, but we found out that the 50th anniversary is going to be hitting all of the Walt Disney World parks. That's kind of the only thing about the 50th that we heard.
And if you'll notice, this entire time that we've been talking about all of these things, Magic Kingdom hasn't really come up.
Neither has Animal Kingdom.
True, but Animal Kingdom did get Pandora not too long ago.
So we're trying to breeze along here. We got a little bit more information about the restaurant, Space 2020.
Yes.
Or 220, excuse me, Space 220, because you're 220 miles above the Earth, and you'll be able to see stuff in the day and night. No word about the cosmic elevator that has been in all of the art, but it's going to be opening sometime next year.
Well, no, they did show at the presentation a quick concept art piece for the elevator.
But they didn't talk about it, is what I'm saying.
They didn't talk about it, but this picture, to me, had 1,000 words in it. It is 100% a callback to the former Disneyland attraction Mission to the Moon / Mission to Mars. And basically, you'll be able to look down and you'll be watching your journey up and watching planet Earth get smaller and smaller. And I think that is really cool. I love seeing little nostalgic nods to former attractions, and I think that this is kind of an amazing way to take it to the next level. I'm really curious about this restaurant. It's going to be run by the Patina Group. I'm hoping to see some really invented what's the term? Gastronomy. I'm hoping to see some I mean, if it's more foam, I'll be all about it. Sure. Just inventive, creative, futuristic things. Again, this is part of World Discovery, along with all the other space stuff.
We got some, as we suspected, Epcot Forever was going to be temporary. We got a word of Harmony Us, which will be, quote, the largest ever nighttime spectacular created for a Disney park. It will celebrate how the music of Disney inspires people the world over. Now, that's all well and good, but at the same time, this is just going to be another fireworks special with Disney music, if you think about it.
True.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, if you hit various music from all of the different pieces of World Showcase, that's a win for me.
Well, and the focus is Disney and its stories told around the world, right?
Through music.
Through
its music.
Right. So it's like, okay, so that kind of connects a little bit more to World Showcase. In the concept art, you can see the silhouette of young Hercules, so I anticipate fully that Go the Distance is going to be at least a part segment in it. Of course, that can always change.
What's interesting about this, or I think, yes, it is Hercules in that, but it's the same. So that's presumably a water screen, but this whole piece of art has Miguel from Coco on the left, Hercules in the middle, and Moana on the right. Those same three characters are used in all of the promo art for Epcot Forever as well. So I wonder if that's just a placeholder image for those water screens, or if it's something where they pulled the wrong flippin' image for this Disney.go.com article. Either way, it's going to be pretty cool. I'm excited. I bet that Epcot Forever is going to give us, without saying that it is, going to give us a bit of a preview of what this is going to be like. I feel it's going to be a very transitional piece from Illuminations into Harmony Us.
And Epcot Forever is going to definitely be very nostalgic for the history of the park. We got to hear a little bit of pieces of music from it.
Didn't we hear the new Epcot theme?
I don't remember.
That because we got a bit of music that I'm pretty sure was going to be the new Epcot theme that utilized stuff from the past, the present, and the future. To create a new piece of stirring instrumental music. Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that we're wrapping up now, but we're going to finish talking about Epcot, and we're going to save some of this stuff, specifically the Star Wars stuff, for a future episode, talking about the Galactic Liner, just because we're running pretty long. But I wanted to then transition into the two things coming to World Showcase. We got confirmations of dates for the France Pavilion, where in 2020, specifically January 2020, similar to the other movies, similar to Awesome Planet in the Land Pavilion, is going to be the debut of the Beauty and the Beast sing-along, which I figure will be pretty close to the Frozen one.
Well, it's interesting because Don Hahn, who produced the animated and the live action, which I don't like to speak about, films, as basically a little twist. And if you look at the concept or the poster that is on the Disney Parks blog for all of this information that you can look at, LeFou is standing on a little balcony and he is holding a flashlight and illuminating the silhouette of Belle and Beast. So I'm getting the sense that there's going to be some comedy involved in this.
Wow, man. I just had a thought. What if it's a mixture of the Renaissancean performances in the new little Fantasyland expansion at Disneyland that they have at the little Fantasyland Theater up front that used to be the place where the swing music happened and still is a little bit kind of, and the Frozen sing-along where there's some live action stuff. It's some stuff where you get a bit of a screen, but other stuff where they sort of they also kind of perform it a little bit in a classical style.
It's possible.
It's possible. I should watch that movie.
And Impressions de France will still be a part of the cycle for the films. It's just they'll be switching off between that and the Beauty and the Beast sing-along.
I like the way they put it. They said it would be a double feature in the Impressions de France Theater. And good on Chapek for giving it a try instead of the Impressions du France Ouvert. So on top of that, we get which no one ever said. Aw, Eisner.
You know what? I'm reading Disney War, and I'm feeling a little bad for him. I'm feeling bad for Katzenberg. I'll update you on all of this later.
Book report time.
Please.
In the summer of 2020 is when we're finally going to get the Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. Cool, rad, cool. And we're going to be getting a new restaurant because if there's something Epcot needs, it's a new restaurant. Le Crêperie de Paris.
And that I love crepes, and I'm happy that we'll be getting all sorts of them and be able to sit down to enjoy them.
Some rad business.
Yeah.
And I think that surprisingly, the thing that got the most attention and things that, at least from us, because we tweeted out, we were trying to live tweet as much as possible, even though this was at turbo speed. The UK pavilion is I'll take two. The UK pavilion, use take two, is that's a note for future me, is going to be getting a Mary Poppins expansion, which from the look of it resembles the modern interpretation of Mary Poppins.
Yeah,
Which
so
is,
the poster has the Emily Blunt version outfit. And also, if you look at the concept art, you can see Lin-Manuel Miranda's character,
or at least a lamplighter.
But the entire segment was introduced to us with with Step in Time, with some chimney sweeps dancing, and good old Dick Van Dyke.
Just came out, talked a little bit, and then left. Didn't really tell us anything, but we was like, oh, something Mary Poppins is happening.
Yeah, it was really charming. It's really interesting to me that they're using imagery from the new film because it didn't do so well at the box office, truthfully.
Was that just here or was it internationally?
That I'm not 100% sure
I'll take a look
about.
while you do.
But I'm hoping that they're able to merge both original Mary Poppins and also have new and not just new, because I feel that people are still more attached to the original than the sequel. Let's just kind of have a mixture of it, even if that means that you can't have the setting be in a specific time. Honestly, Mary Poppins defies the laws of nature anyway, so that's great.
It makes me think. Some of the most iconic stuff from Mary Poppins are the musical sequence.
Yeah.
Time isn't necessarily attached to Chim Chim Cheree. Time isn't really necessarily a factor in Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. The only ones that really are the ones with specifically in the quote real world with the Banks children.
Yeah.
So something that so it's hard. It says that it's an attraction. It doesn't say that it's a ride, because attraction can mean a couple things. But I think if similarly to whatever they're doing with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, where they have you join the art style, if there is a way to ride through the vase, which had a very specific art style from Mary Poppins Returns, or then also going into Bert's street painting, where you experience Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
I mean, the most perfect thing would be able to get onto one of the carousel horses on a trackless ride system individually and just go into the world. A
practically perfect idea.
Yes. Thank you. You will enter whatever this attraction is. I'm hoping it's not just a meet and greet or a glorified... Because right now I'm kind of getting the impression that it's kind of like the Belle meet and greet that's over in Fantasyland at Walt Disney World, where it's highly themed as a home that you go to and you travel through. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. I hope that it's more than that, because I strongly feel that Mary Poppins deserves more than that. But I am intrigued by the fact that we're getting a full Cherry Tree Lane with the good old captain's home and the cannon going off.
I wonder how often the cannon will go off.
Twitter keeps asking about this. But this is probably the biggest question on everyone's mind right now.
It's strange because there's so much magic in both of those movies, and it's weird. I'm kind of getting teary-eyed just thinking about it right now. But
give me penguins. Please, Disney, give me penguins.
So that's the thing. There is some magic when it comes to London, Mary Poppins London, I'll say. But when it comes to the house, there isn't. I mean, there's Spoonful of Sugar. Yeah. There's the Suffragette song. There's the one from the new movie that I can't remember. Even the bath time song starts in the real world and then
imagine that. Out of all of the other numbers for the most recent film, I felt like that had the most potential and for me was the most fun. So if I'm going,
I got a similar vibe from Let's Go. I'm all right. So let's go fly a kite.
Oh, and actually, it did show in the concept art there was a kite flying, and I think it did say
it was the kite.
It did say somewhere, or they did say something about being able to be a part of flying the kite.
Ugh.
So now I'm getting a little emotional.
Right? Why is that?
This is why we need Disney Plus, because I've been needing to watch Mary Poppins.
Why
again.
is that so, like, I can't really explain it.
It's about the family coming together and just having fun for the afternoon.
The finale of Mary Poppins Returns, I felt very similarly.
Yeah, and I mean, it's looking to the sky, and it's everybody just being like, let's go out for the afternoon as a family together and enjoying each other's time together. And I think that's why it hits people on such a personal and emotional level. For me, growing up as a kid, my dad worked really, really hard and had extreme hours. He was in the entertainment industry, and we never knew when he was going to come home. Going out as a family, me, my mom, and my dad together, was next to impossible.
Yeah.
So, whew. So that idea of flying a kite is like really special, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, really quickly, I grabbed the box office. About 350 million worldwide. It was actually remarkably a pretty close split from domestic to foreign. It was about 172 domestically and 177 overseas.
Yeah, so that's not great by Disney standards.
No, and now I have to check and see what the budget was. And while it's not great, it's one of those things where now they have the extended life with Disney Plus.
Right.
How well did it do?
Merchandise sales is the real question for me.
Because a lot of the stuff was really flippin' cool.
Yeah, like there are plenty of properties, intellectual properties that Disney has where they don't necessarily do great at the box office, but they translate really well into a themed environment in the parks, which is why Mary Poppins is such a ripe thing to use.
Yeah. And here's one of those things where on one end of the park, you're like, no, IPs are terrible.
Yeah.
And then once this gets announced, everybody is in tears because it's what they've wanted their entire lives.
Exactly.
So there's
a major contradiction in the fandom, 100%.
You can't have it both ways.
You can't have it both ways.
The cover is not the book.
Oh.
How about that? So it made 350 million worldwide with a budget of 130 million. So almost 3 times its budget.
Okay.
So it's a success, not a smash.
Right.
Which is okay, but like you said, from Disney standards, not the best. But it's going to be recouping that stuff with this theme park experience, with the home stuff, with the merchandise, with all of the shenaniganry. And I hope it's a ride. I think we all hope that it's a ride because the Banks house isn't where the magic happens.
It's where it starts. But
it's the gateway. Which
is why you have to enter through 17 Cherry Tree Lane.
That's why they say mentioning that the attraction starts once you step through the door of the Banks house. Yeah, just like the films, just like the stories.
Yeah.
So I'm really hopeful that we're going to be getting a ride and not a walkthrough.
Please give us a ride. Epcot needs more rides. For the love of God, please.
But it says first attraction inspired by Mary Poppins. So
as she deserves. Our queen.
She deserves queen. Yes. So that's going to be where we're going to call it for this episode. We finished talking about Epcot. We talked about the theme park experience. We are a parks podcast. Now there was some talk about the Halcyon, the space cruiser that's going to be the Star Wars experience that takes you from Earth to space to Batuu. And we're going to be talking about on the next episode of Party of Two. So if you've made it all the way through, we appreciate you. So if you're not following, make sure to follow us on Twitter at Party of Two Pod. Depending on wherever you're listening. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure to subscribe here. We shot some video content that we're going to be putting together and have available for us to make some new video segments on our page. And if you're watching on YouTube, but you want the podcast experience to take around as you go and you don't have YouTube Red, make sure to follow us on Anchor.fm, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, your podcast provider of choice. It helps us out immensely by listening on Anchor, because that's where we monetize. So
it also gives us a better idea of how many of you are actually listening.
Yeah, and you can go to Anchor.fm if you're listening through Anchor, or I think any of the audio options. In the description is a way to leave voice messages for us, which we can play on the show, discuss. If you have questions or stuff specifically from D23 or beyond that you want us to talk about, leave us a message there, because there was a lot of other stuff from D23 that was parks related that we got to experience that we'll do in supplementary episodes down the line.
And there's plenty that I want to say that we weren't able to get to about what wasn't announced. And again, we're going to have to cover this in another episode.
Stay tuned for that. So this was all that was at D23. Stay tuned for all that wasn't, Star Wars, and the rest of our D23 experience. We probably have a full month at least of stuff.
Yeah.
So make sure to follow us here, follow us on YouTube, or on our social medias. Andrea, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter at DoleWhipDrea. I am very active there. Give me a follow. I'll follow you back. We'll talk about the parks and have some fun.
Have some fun with me at Mark B. Donica. Do chada. Follow me at Mark B. Donica on Twitter and Instagram. Instagram was fun. That I did a lot of Instagram stories. There's still a lot of photography that I haven't posted, but that's where I posted the fun Spider-Man picture with another Dreamfinder. And weird stuff happens on Instagram. Follow us a party of two. Make sure to support our friends over at nerdmountainshop.com. We got to spend a lot of time with them over the weekend and help further promote their merchandise, which we're looking forward to doing a little bit more of in the future. But follow us a party of two. Make sure to stay tuned for more. We love you. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next ride.